Sometimes, the scariest mysteries don't happen in haunted houses or dark forests. They happen in the places we feel safest. A quiet home in the hills of West Virginia. A loving family preparing for the holidays. And then, an event so strange, so unexplainable that decades later, people are still asking, what really happened that night? Was it fate, an accident, or something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? Because some stories don't just vanish with time, they echo, they haunt. And this one has refused to let go for over 70 years. It was the year 1945. The small town of Fayetteville, West Virginia, was alive with the magic of Christmas. Snow dusted the rooftops, shop windows glowed with decorations, and families bustled about, finishing their last-minute shopping. But while the town was busy preparing for the holidays, one family, the Sodders, was about to face a night that would forever change their lives and leave behind one of the most enduring mysteries America has ever seen. The Sodder family lived in a 2-story wooden home just outside town. George and Jenny, the parents, were well respected in the community. George, an Italian immigrant, had built a successful trucking business. Together, they raised 10 children. A large, lively household, always filled with chatter, laughter, and the energy of siblings growing up together. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder house glowed with warmth. The children were excited, staying up late to play with their new toys, whispering about Santa Claus, enjoying the holiday spirit. George and Jenny eventually sent most of the kids to bed, but a few begged to stay up and continue celebrating. It was the kind of ordinary, cozy night every parent remembers. Quiet, safe, full of family love. But sometime after midnight, everything changed. At around 1 a.m., Jenny was startled awake by the sound of the telephone ringing downstairs. She went to answer, only to hear a strange voice on the other end. A woman she didn't recognize, asking for someone Jenny didn't know. Behind the voice, laughter, glasses clinking, the sound of a party. Jenny told the caller they had the wrong number and hung up. At first, she thought nothing of it, just a mistake. But as she returned to bed, she noticed something strange. The lights were still on, the curtains open, the front door unlocked. The children who had stayed up late had not gone to bed as promised. She turned off the lights, closed the curtains, and locked the door before heading back upstairs. Within minutes, she was jolted awake again, this time by the smell of smoke. Jenny rushed to the window and saw flames near George's office. His trucking business paperwork, stored inside the house, was already catching fire. Panicked, she screamed for her husband and for the children. The family woke in chaos. Smoke was filling the home, the heat growing unbearable. George, Jenny, and several of the children managed to escape out the front door. But when they reached safety, horror struck them. 5 of the Sodder children were missing. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and little Betty, all between the ages of 5 and 14. Nowhere to be found. Trapped, the parents believed, inside the burning house. Frantic, George tried to re-enter the home, but the staircase had already collapsed. He ran outside, desperate for a way in. His first thought The ladder he always kept by the side of the house, it was gone. He then tried to move his trucks, hoping to climb on them and reach the upstairs windows. But inexplicably, both trucks refused to start, despite working perfectly the day before. Neighbors began to gather, watching in helpless silence as the Sauter home burned to the ground. Firefighters were called. But because it was Christmas Eve, many were unavailable. The fire brigade didn't arrive until nearly 7 hours later, long after the home had been reduced to smoldering ashes. By dawn, the Sauter house was nothing more than rubble. Authorities quickly concluded that the missing children had perished in the flames. But George and Jenny refused to accept this. Why? Because something about the fire and what came after didn't add up. First, there were no human remains. A fire that lasted only 45 minutes, according to reports, should not have been hot enough to completely destroy bones. Experts later confirmed, even in house fires, recognizable remains are usually found. Yet, in the Sauter home, nothing. No bones, no teeth, no trace. Second, witnesses began reporting strange sightings. A neighbor claimed she saw a man watching the house from the road the night of the fire. Another said she saw the missing children in a car driving away from town as the house burned. And a woman working at a tourist stop miles away later insisted she had served breakfast to 5 children, matching their description. And perhaps most chilling of all, months later, Jenny received a letter. Inside was a photograph of a young man. On the back, writing suggested it was one of her sons, grown older, alive, and possibly being held somewhere. The Sauters became consumed by their search. They put up billboards across highways, pleading for information. They hired private investigators. They even wrote to the FBI, begging for help. J. Edgar Hoover himself replied, saying he was sympathetic. But unless the local police invited the Bureau in, his hands were tied, and the local authorities refused. Why? That question still lingers. Over the years, the Sauters followed countless leads. Some pointed to organized crime, others hinted at family enemies. And there was another layer of tension. George Sauter was outspoken in his criticism of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. Could political grudges from overseas have reached this quiet town in West Virginia? Every clue seemed to deepen the mystery, not solve it. Theories flourished. Some believed the fire was set deliberately to cover up a kidnapping. The missing ladder, the disabled trucks, the delayed firefighters, all seemed too coincidental. Others argued the children had indeed perished, and the lack of remains could be explained away by the intensity of the flames. But even scientists have questioned that conclusion. To this day, no definitive evidence has ever surfaced. The Sauter parents passed away, never knowing the truth. Their remaining children, carrying the unanswered questions into the future. And yet, the story refuses to fade. Because when a case leaves behind so many contradictions, when 5 children simply vanish into the night without a trace, and when every answer only raises new questions, people cannot help but wonder, so what really happened that night? In Fayetteville, West Virginia. Did the Sauter children perish in the fire? Were they kidnapped? Were they hidden away? As part of something larger, something dark, secretive, and perhaps sinister? No one knows for sure. What we do know is this. Sometimes, the most haunting mysteries are not those of ghosts or legends, but the real human tragedies that leave behind nothing but questions. And the Sodder family's story is one of them. 70 years have passed since that cold December night, and still, the silence of West Virginia holds more questions than answers. Was it truly a tragic accident? Or was there something darker, something that the world was never meant to know? The ashes are gone, the home rebuilt, but the mystery? It lingers, like whispers in the smoke, a story that refuses to rest. And maybe, just maybe, the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The question is, do you believe it was fate? Or do you believe it was something else entirely? If this mystery haunts you as much as it has haunted history, let me know your thoughts below. Because sometimes, the scariest mysteries are the ones closest to home.